Senate to order at 5 p.m. Moving on to letter B, roll call, Executive Assistant Zemer.
President Siebert.
Here.
Vice President Easley. Here. Trustee Almira. Here. Treasurer Tuesday.
Here.
Public Relations Representative Webster. Here. Health Allocations Chair Schultz.
Here.
Senator Almy. Here. Senator Pelkey. Here. Senator Geiger. Here. Senator Weber. Here. Senator Simonet. Here. Senator Robinson. Here. Senator Weir.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Here. Senator Flores. Here. Senator Spalding. Here. Senator Wen.
Excuse.
And St. John Senate Representative.
Here.
Advisor Terhar.
She's here.
Here. I return it.
Thank you. Moving on to letter C, opening reflections, Chairwoman Stokes.
Oh, I like the new name. Thank you. Yeah, name change. Okay, so I have a little worksheets for you guys. They're not worksheets. They're like self-care plans. So if you don't like the option on the front, which I like this one a lot, there are like different categories you can fill it out for these next few weeks when it gets really stressful. You can do the option on the back. And you can make your own little wheels like family, friends, school, love, relationships, myself. So, we're gonna take one of these, we'll take like 3 to 4 minutes to do this. And just like de-stress and make a plan for the rest of the like 2 to 3 weeks we have here. And if this sound works, I'll play Christmas music.
It's Christmas time in the city. Ring-a-ling, hear them sing. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Strings of street lights and stoplights, like a bright red moon. As the shoppers rush home with their treasure, hear the snow crunch, see the kids bunch. This is Santa's big scene. And above all the bustle you can hear silver bells. The corner Santa Claus is busy now because it's Christmas time in the city. You'll hear it in the air, you'll hear it everywhere. Soon it will be Christmas Day. Very soon it will be Christmas Day.
What's a super easy way to tell that your bed is awful? The raw egg test. Let me prove it.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. In olden days, friends who are dear to us, gather near to us once more.
All right, sorry, it's been 4 minutes. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this, and it was a little bit calming. If you didn't finish it, just finish it if you want to, or just keep it in a notebook. Take my time.
Thank you, Chairwoman Stokes. Moving on to letter D, approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
There's been a motion by Senator Weir and a second by Vice President Weekly. Are there any changes to last week's minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes stand approved. Moving on to letter E, approval of the agenda. There's been a motion by Senator Robinson and a second by Treasurer Tay. Are there any changes to today's agenda? Seeing none, we will move to vote. All those in favor of approving today's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda stands approved. Moving on to Roman numeral 2, guest, letter A, John McKee.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
That's what we usually start with. I'm John McKee. I'm Vice President for Planning and Strategy at St. Ben's and St. John's, and I know a number of you. And you probably know a member of my family. If you don't know me, I have a son who's here who's on St. John's Senate. And one of the things I do, curiously enough, even though he's a student here, and I've been doing it for years, is study students. Why do you come here? What do you know, who are you? What are your aspirations? What are your expectations? And we do, how many of you are first-year students? Is anybody a first-year student? Aha. So, and for those of you who aren't first-year students, you have to think back in the hazy memories of your mind when you were during orientation. You all got shepherded into a room, and you were given the one bubble form survey that you had to fill out because it's a required orientation activity where we ask all these questions about you, and you're thinking when you walk in, because I get it every year, is this just another version of the SAT or the ACT? And it's not. But it's a really valuable survey that we do. My office does a lot of surveys of students, but we also survey, again, the next time my office surveys students is when they're seniors. And so how many of you are seniors? So you all got this survey. I am not going to ask whether you filled it out or not, though I'm very hopeful that you did do that. It closed last Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And so Mary, Catherine, and I had talked about this, and why would I be here? And by the way, thank you for inviting me. I don't often get these opportunities to do this, and I never say no, because I think it's valuable for me, and I hope it's valuable for you. So what I want to do is spend a few minutes telling a story of you. And students at the College of St. Benedict, at least senior students at St. Ben's, and for those of you who aren't seniors, you can think about this in the context of, is this me? And you can also think about this in the context of, everybody has their own kind of, in some ways, all students here are linked together at some level. But in some ways, we're linked together 10 up, 10 down, 10 sideways, that kind of thing. And the world becomes the world of the people that you are closest to. But in fact, that may or may not be the world of the majority of students here, or students generally. And so I'd ask you to think about this. And some of the things I want to share with you, and by the way, this is all real time. Jody has not heard this. And frankly, I haven't either. I got this data Monday afternoon. And so this is like brand new. Otherwise, normally I'd be standing here with a really clever presentation that would hopefully get me an A in a comm class. But nonetheless, so we're going to do that in a little different fashion today. So let me tell you a little bit about the senior survey. The senior survey is administered, we've been doing this for 18 years, surveying seniors. It's the second longest running survey we have at St. Ben's and St. John's after the New England Student Survey. We administer it the third week in October, we always have. It seems to be a very good time. School has been in session long enough. You're not desperately waiting for a holiday at that point. And for seniors, the worst time to survey ever is from about March 1st on. There is no way to grab seniors' attention any year after March 1st. So we have this narrow window to ask you to complete this very long survey, which has 5 sections and appears to be only about 20 questions long. It's actually, sorry, for those of you who aren't seniors yet, please don't let this scare you. It's probably about 75 or 80 questions. It doesn't take that long to fill out. But nonetheless, when you add A, B, C, D, and all the way through, it can get pretty lengthy. But it's incredibly valuable. And it provides us, administratively and academically, information that we otherwise wouldn't have, and frankly, most colleges don't do this. And if they do it, they bless you. If they do it, they do it episodically. And they often also don't do a very good job of sharing it. I know this, I work with lots of different colleges. I used to work with the Minnesota Private College Council and have some idea of how this works. The survey itself had 5 sections. Something about you, evaluating St. Ben's and St. John's, asking you questions about your experiences here. What did you actually learn in your time here? What contributions has this experience made for you? And then something about your plans. And I want to touch on a little bit in all of them. And in areas that I think are particularly important for you as a Senate to know and you as students to know. In total, 379 St. Ben's and St. John's students filled out the survey. 50% of the seniors at St. Ben's and 40% of the seniors at St. John's. That gap is always 10 points at least every year. Sorry, Zach, it's just that way. That it has been that way forever and ever and ever. But we don't have, other than that new entering student survey, which we march you into a room and you happily comply and fill that out, it's a lot more difficult with seniors on a voluntary survey to get them to do this. But we have no others, the surveys that we're doing have remarkably high response rates. They would pass any test of statistical reliability, and we learn a ton from them. They also occur in context, and I think that's important for me to start with today. And the context was, we did this the 3rd week in October. It has been, in many ways, for lots of students, and not just this year, but really extending, frankly, since the election last year, a lot, sort of the context around St. Ben's and St. John's and the world. We don't live independently in the world, and it's been a challenging context. So there are pieces reflected in here that reflect this sort of the state of the political world, the state of activities in the city of St. Joseph come through in lots of ways in here as well. And there are open comments. We provide students with 2 opportunities to write in the survey. And of the 379 students who filled out the survey, over 300 wrote something. Many of them are positive, many of them are not. And frankly, not because I'm a negative kind of guy, but I always look at the negative comments first because I want to know, what's being said, what do we need to do better, what needs to happen to improve the quality of this experience for students. And some of the comments, frankly, are a reflection of who you are and where you're at in your lives right now, positive or negative. Some of them are more lasting kinds of comments. One of the things I know for certain about seniors, and having actually just completed a book about thinking about college, it's a book for parents actually, is that at the point you enroll in college, the day you go, if you remember back to that day, this is sort of the Dr. Seuss moment. Oh, the places I'll go. And at that moment, by the way, your parents are thinking wistfully, oh, the places we've been. So at that point, parents have to pivot from thinking of you as this to you as this. And it's not easy for parents, but students just forge ahead. By the time you're a senior, and by the time you're in March or April of your senior year, those roles get flipped. A very significant portion of St. Ben's and St. John's seniors don't want to go at that point. Would prefer to stay here in the lovely confines, and sometimes bubble, of St. Ben's and St. John's. Because it's at that point that all the safety nets and all these things that create this experience go away or change in a very, very significant way. And students then become wistful. Your parents are not. Your parents are grateful that the tuition payment is done. You've already lived away from home, so they've gotten used to that. And they've also gotten used to the notion that, hey, you are a full-blown adult, which you really were at 18 too. But at 22, it's a different kind of thing. And for those of you who are seniors, I'd ask you to think about this, and even in the context of what I'm going to talk about in just a minute, finally, to complete 4 sentences for yourself as you think about going forward. And if you're not a senior, you can do the same thing. I expect, Mary Catherine has heard this drill already. I expect, I value, I need. Don't put in I want, because you want everything. Everybody wants everything. Expect more, pay less. Kind of thing. But I expect, I value, I need. You can, however you choose, answer those 4 questions. Know a great deal about yourself, the choices you've made, and the choices that you have yet to make. And they frame your choices and your values. And so I think about that a lot, because I think at the point of entry, too many students are first of all, seduced by the shiny objects that make a college campus what it is. It is so cool here. There are great places to live. The food is good. The lawns are lovely and beautiful. There's a lot of fun things that go on. The people are so nice. There are so many opportunities to do this, that, or the other thing. Those are all nice. It's all important, and it's tangible, and it's emotional. But they ask the question, am I right for this place? When in fact, the real question is this place right for me? And so by the time we get to the senior year, what we're trying to figure out in this survey, and our students is, was this the right choice? So I'll start with a little bit about you. So I'm just going to ramble through this. There are no notes. This is just sort of none of this. So this is you getting what you're getting, and please feel free to ask me questions. One of the first things we ask is, we give you a list of adjectives and say, describe the words or phrases that characterize you today. And there are four really, that the majority, a significant majority of St. Ben students use to describe themselves. And they go in this order: friendly, open-minded, which by the way is a newer one we've added, open-minded, driven, and my favorite, fun. Fun always appears on the list. But that's an interesting collection. And think about that. Think about it in terms of who you all are. And it says something, it says actually quite a bit about who the school is. I think oftentimes schools believe that we are independent of our students. We are not. And we are not independent of our alums. Ultimately, we can be evaluated by how much money we spend, by the buildings we build, by the food we serve, by the classes we offer. But ultimately, we are evaluated as institutions by the people who either go to school here or have gone to school here, in terms of the values you exhibit, the intellect, the skills, the leadership. All of those things ultimately are the way a place is evaluated, more than shiny objects. And so those words, and the reason we added several years ago this idea of asking you to describe yourselves is because, and what I'm going to talk about in just a second here, is we've also historically asked, select the words or phrases that describe St. Ben's and St. John's. And Catherine Enck, who works in the president's office, who actually was a student at St. Ben's, and after she graduated, she worked for me for 3 years. And so we were doing this survey, and she said, well, maybe what they're telling us is not words that describe St. Ben's or St. John's, they're giving us words that describe, well, themselves. And if you are what you eat, then you are who you enroll, which is a gross metaphor, but nonetheless, it works. We are who we enroll. And so the words that students pick to describe St. Ben's and St. John's are friendly, supportive, community, comfortable, and intellectual. I'm actually quite pleased that intellectual makes the list. It does not have the top 5 for St. John's, but it's close. But nonetheless, that's not a knock, it just doesn't. But I mean, that says a lot about who we are, especially when you combine it with friendly, fun, driven, and open-minded. And it says something about the kind of experience, not only that you expect, but who you are as people, and the experience you create for yourselves. One of the great suites of questions we've asked forever, and we ask new students this and senior students this, is we ask students a very un-Minnesota question, which is to rate how you see yourselves in relation to your peers along a number of different variables, which is so un-Minnesota because the scale is top 10%, above average, average, below average, and bottom 10%. Actually, exactly 0 put themselves in the bottom 10% on any of these. And most students, in fact, rate themselves as above average or highest 10%, which of course statistically is impossible, but it's a nice, confident thought. And keep in mind that confidence, for all of those who are here and wherever you'll go in life, make no mistake, confidence is a tangible commodity. It is absolutely a commodity that has a value in the professional world and in your life. Now there's deserved confidence and undeserved confidence as well. One is called an empty suit, and the other is somebody authentic and genuine, but nonetheless, confidence is important. And this year, interestingly, we had a significant bump in the percentage of St. Ben seniors who rated their academic ability as above average or in the highest 10%. It went from about 65% to 72%, which is a significant gain, and I was actually quite pleased to say that. Leadership ability, intellectual self-confidence, those remained actually quite similar. I will tell you, the other was drive to achieve, which actually is 3/4 of St. Ben students describe their drive to achieve as above average or in the top 10%, and really everybody else says it's at least average. So that you are all driven fits this idea of think critically, advocate passionately, lead courageously. That's important. Those aren't just 6 words that don't matter. Those are 6 words that are meant to describe what we value here and what we hope you are when you lead. And they're not just nice things, they're important things in your life. The one that students are most likely to evaluate themselves as average is social self-confidence. Now there are wide gaps in the first year and the senior year between men and women. Men are, in the first year and in the senior year, significantly more likely to evaluate their abilities as above average or in the top 10% than women. Even if you control for grade point average, that men systematically evaluate themselves more highly than women do. This is a question I've puzzled over for a very long period of time because it lends itself to the question, does this mean that women systematically undervalue themselves? Does it mean that men systematically overvalue themselves? And the answer could be yes, just yes. And the way we've chosen to address it here is to say, we simply want, we instead of saying because you can change the scale by saying, guys, you just shouldn't be that confident. So if we make you less confident, then it makes it more equal. Is that better? Probably not. The real issue is to say we expect some standard. We prefer it that just on a score, and we will score all of these to say we expect at least 80% of all students to say that they're above average or top, some number like that, just to rate themselves highly. And we don't want, it's not about the men at St. John's rating themselves less highly, but it is about encouraging women to, in fact, embrace the achievements and the skills and the knowledge that you have and hold, and to embrace your own potential, and to not to sort of hold that under a box. That's you don't need to do that, and in fact, you're going to need to be your own best advocates when you lead. We ask, and this is a couple I want to go to on this idea of community and how we work together and live together on these campuses in a number of dimensions. We ask, and we have for a number of years, this is a real tossing question. It turns out that the last 2 years, it's not an unimportant question. How would you describe your political views? I mean, this question comes out of nowhere on the survey. It's the only one like it on the survey. Look, I was a political science major. I have a graduate degree in public policy. I cannot resist asking this question. And it turns out that the proportion of students who describe themselves as both liberal and conservative rose slightly at St. Ben's this year, meaning there are fewer students who describe themselves as middle of the road. Think about that in the context of all the information you receive, a lot of it now through social media, and driving you to choose one or the other. In some ways, I have to say, as somebody who worked at the Capitol for 10 years, middle of the road is not a bad place to be, because it's a position that if you use it right means I can work with lots and lots of people and I don't have to put you in a box and you in a box to be able to deal with you. St. Ben's students are decidedly more liberally oriented than St. John's students, but it's more balanced at St. John's between liberal and conservative. 32% of St. John's students describe themselves as conservative, 28% is liberal. At St. Ben's, it's 41 liberal, 21 conservative. But think about that in the context of the issues that play, and that we cannot escape the 24/7 news cycle and what that means on campus. And I'm going to ask you to think about that when I talk about community in just a moment. In terms of evaluating St. Ben's and St. John's, we do ask, because we have to, and we ask this in a variety of ways in the survey, how satisfied have you been with your total undergraduate experience here? And in spite of the fact that people will write things sometimes that are sharply critical or note in other ways they can be critical, on balance, students here are really almost shockingly and remarkably satisfied with the experience. 91% of St. Ben's seniors said that they were satisfied with their total undergraduate experience at St. Ben's and St. John's. It's probably not even reasonable to expect it to be much higher than that. Now, I get it, it's a survivor statistic. So if you were really, really unsatisfied, you left already. However, our retention rates and our persistence rates after the second year are very, very high. And so, in fact, it turns out most students do stay here for all 4 years and graduate from here, which also, as it turns out, is not the norm in higher education. We have retention rates and completion rates that are much, much higher than most institutions. But we ask as well, so we try to unpack this in a variety of ways. So when you think about your experience here, how would you rate each of the following? And one that I was particularly interested in this year and learning more about was the sense of campus community, which, by the way, is one of the open box questions that we ask students to write about. How would you describe community? What does community mean to you at St. Ben's and St. John's? And here, you know, it's a noticeable change actually on both campuses from last year to this year. Last year, 59% of all St. Ben's students described the sense of campus community as excellent. This year, 49%. It went from 57 to 43 at St. John's. Some of that was made up. People went from excellent to good. And of course, good is the all-time great Minnesota answer. You know, when somebody, how you doing? Not bad. You know, it's sort of the I'm committing, but I'm really not committing kind of answer. But which is one of the reasons why I prefer top box answers, the real expression of core emotion. But we went from 14% of students who described the sense of community here as fair or poor to 20%. That's not very good. And it's a little bit confounding when I start to talk a little bit more about when we ask people to describe the relationships they have with students and others on campus. Nonetheless, I think that's something we need to pay attention to here. And in fact, in the writing section, for those who chose to do it, and a lot did, a lot of people write beautiful things about community, very positive experiences that they've had here. And other people write sharply negative. And frankly, the sharply negative things are not unusual. And you can think of it this way. You all came here. Nobody comes here as a blank slate. Nobody goes to college anywhere as a blank slate. And one of the great pretensions colleges can have, among the great pretensions colleges can have, is that we believe that you are all like us who are already here. Pretension number one. Pretension number two is that we are like you. And as a parent of a college student, no, he makes me aware of that routinely. As does my daughter, who's back there, who's 13. But the idea that we're all like you or you're like us is an enormous pretension. In fact, you come with 5 real sets of characteristics. Most colleges measure 2 of them and just let the other 3 just sort of live. Socioeconomic characteristics, academic characteristics, really easy to measure both of those. Values characteristics, social characteristics, and cultural characteristics. You all come with some sense, with some part of all of those are part of your being. They make who you are, and they're formed obviously by the experiences you've had in your life, by your family, by your schooling, by lots and lots of things. The thing about colleges is that 2 things. One is that there are typical or modal kinds of students. And the students who are most likely to say the community was great here are modal students. The students who are the kinds of students who have, frankly, always come to St. Ben's and St. John's, or have for generations come to St. Ben's and St. John's. The students who are least likely to identify a strong sense of community are those who don't fit, that's not the right word, who don't share the characteristics that the modal students do. But to me, and I've written about this in a variety of different ways, this idea that colleges make a lot of assumptions about the values, social, cultural, socioeconomic, and academic capital required to succeed at a particular college. I think that's a huge mistake because it creates a kind of hidden curriculum, right? This sort of hidden set of rules that we just assume you're going to know and figure out how this thing works, that you'll all just do that. And in fact, it doesn't work that way. And as our student body changes, and for you, you're here 4 years, it's hard to have a sense really in 4 short years, and for a lot of you, 1 semester of that gone because you were overseas somewhere. In 4 short years, you don't get to see it because that's sort of human time. But for those of us who've been here actually a very long time, there's sort of a glacial element to that, and we do see how the student body changes. And our student body is changing actually quite rapidly in almost all of the dimensions that I described, which is a good thing. But then that comes back to us to say, what does that mean for the experience that we provide? We can't get by with simply the assumptions that we might have made historically about how things work and who students are and how they'll engage each other are the same. That in fact, we have to take that up. That's our responsibility. Because yes, you have your own responsibility. You are the primary input to your own outcome. Make no mistake about that. And it wouldn't have mattered where you went to college. That there is no deposit, no return for you. However, we accepted you, we invited you, and we accepted you. And it is our responsibility to meet you where you're at and to provide an experience and the support required for that experience for you to succeed. That's our obligation. And so this idea of community and sort of the more critical comments that we receive this time are actually quite valuable. And I actually don't believe we should just say, oh my God. No, it's reflective of a changing student body, and it's not something you run from. It's something you talk about and take on. And I will say that, and you all know Mary Hinton, and this is something that Mary feels, these are the kinds of things Mary feels extremely strongly about. We have a very large grant request in now to a national organization to deal with the issue of inclusive excellence. So to take on issues of inclusive excellence to ensure that this community is in fact a real community and inclusively excellent. So I thought that was important to share with you. We asked students to also evaluate, among other things, your social experience. That actually didn't change very much. That about 8 in 10 St. Ben students say that they're satisfied with their social experience here, which is a good thing. I'm always, I look for the number of students who identify this campus as home. It's one of the things I wrote about. It's what I'm trying to write to parents. That in fact, and it's hard, this is hard for parents, when you start referring to college as home. And then when you go home, you are part resident, part guest. I get that when you go home, because that's the way you might interpret it. You're there for a few days and then you're off. But this becomes home, and so the social experience matters. However, then we probe a little deeper, you know, thinking about your residential experience, how satisfied are you with the overall diversity of the colleges with respect to backgrounds and social identity? Well, last year, 57% of St. Ben students said they were very satisfied. Most of the rest said they were ambivalent. This year, 48%, only 48%, so less than half, said they were satisfied. 32% said they were ambivalent. But about 1 in 5 said that they were dissatisfied. And that's something that we're not going to ignore, and we can't ignore. Because the diversity of the colleges now, in terms of background and social identity, is not the way it's going to be. It can't be. This is not America. This is not the world. That in fact, as America and the world changes, I suppose we have a choice to become completely idiosyncratic or anachronistic, but we're not. We have to change as the world changes, and our student body needs to reflect the changing world as well. So that becomes really important. To pivot a bit, we also asked about student residential facilities, and I really had to struggle with this one at St. Ben's. I did understand it at St. John's. That last year, 72% of St. Ben seniors said they were very satisfied with student residential facilities. It didn't say senior housing, it just said student residential facilities. So it's really some evaluation of all 4 years that you're here. This year, only 55% said that, and almost 1 in 5 said they were dissatisfied. I didn't see that coming. I don't exactly, now some of that I know is that there's a lot of demand to get into Centennial Commons. There's more demand to get into Centennial Commons than there are spaces to live in Centennial Commons. And that the perception that the spaces that students get who wants to live in Centennial Commons are in fact not parallel with Centennial Commons. That's a part of it. Some of it was just talking about you got to fix the first year results. And in some ways we've begun that process. Actually that's true on both campuses. Zach will talk about the St. John's one a little later. We asked the question, now this one we will also ask, we'll ask when you're 3 years out. Okay, so fair warning. We're going to survey you again 3 years out, because by then you've had time to launch. And people have. But we asked, you know, has the overall value of your education here justified what you and your family paid for it? I love that question. We've been asking it a long time, because it goes beyond, was it any good? Because value has to be linked to what did you pay. And by the way, last year at St. Ben's, I don't know it yet this year, there were 1,936 students who paid 1,073 different prices here, after financial aid from all, grant and scholarship aid from all sources. And that's because you all present differently. You come from different families with different needs, you have different academic characteristics. There is no price that everybody pays here, not even close. There's more than 1,000, it's also true at St. John's, over 1,000 different prices that students pay. So the question of value is of course contextual. But 83% of all St. Ben students said that they believed that the value of the education they received justified what they paid for, which is an extraordinarily high satisfaction rate. 3% say they don't know, which by the way is a really fair kind of response. We ask questions then about experiences where we get into, and I prefer to survey this way to say, does this describe, so we will put an assertion we want you to believe is true, that we hope happens. And then we ask the degree to which you agree with this, from strongly agree to strongly disagree, or just I neither agree nor disagree. And one of them is, I have found a community at St. Ben's and St. John's where I feel like I belong. And the significance of that question, so Friday, we will have a group of prospective trustee scholars on campus. Some of you may be trustee scholars, so you remember this day. And you come here with, typically a parent or family member will come. I get to talk to the parents. And this is really important to them. Because the day you arrived, and I know that this happens, and your parents have worried about this, your families are worried about this too. The day you arrived, I think the thing students worry about most is not, am I going to get good grades? Oh no. 18-year-olds are supremely confident beings. That for sure. But the question is, am I going to find some people here that are me? Am I going to have friends? And the scary question, am I going to be lonely when I'm here? Those are real questions. And even if you don't give voice to them, think back, and I imagine that you probably have that. So the question then becomes, as seniors, did you find a community here? We toss around the term community a lot. And it turns out that 81% of St. Ben seniors, which is about the same as last year, agreed or strongly agreed that they found a community like where they belong. And about 7% said no, I disagree with that. But it's very, very high that most students do in fact find a group of people, however large that is, to whom they can relate. We ask the questions where you assert students are respectful of one another here when discussing controversial issues or perspectives. Now think about this for a moment. Y'all just said that you had a great experience, you found this community where you belong, but we had a significant drop in the percentage of students who say that that you all are respectful of one another when discussing controversial issues. Went from 74% to 60% in terms of agree or strongly agree. That's a big drop. That's a really, really significant change. And I ask you to think about that, because it's important. I'm very fond of telling seniors that I get to meet with as they prepare to go out into their lives, don't surround yourself with yourself. Find people in your life who are interesting and whom you agree and don't agree. It is very, very easy now to slip into the trap of find your social media outlet that speaks only to who you are and what you believe, and systematically ignore all the rest just because you don't like it, or even because sometimes it's uncomfortable. But the fact is, in your life, you will encounter people with whom you are uncomfortable, and you'll have to work with them in some way. And so it doesn't mean, and this is not the same saying you gotta like them, but you're gonna have to figure out ways to communicate about controversial issues without pieces just devolving into, well, Mary Catherine, you just believe that, and I believe this, and how about those Vikings? That's not a productive way. And unfortunately, you all have terrible role models nationally. To look at Congress and to look at the state of leadership in the United States right now, you are not graced with extraordinary role models, which is a tragedy. Although I will tell you, maybe I'll just I'm going to end with this one. Hold that thought. But I think that's an important issue. We do ask how many of you who has served as mentors or role models. That's really important at a liberal arts college, and especially a smaller college. And consistently, so we ask, as a professor, served as a mentor or role model. 88% of St. Ben seniors say yes. You would not answer it that way, likely, at the University of Minnesota, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the University of Michigan, just because the scale doesn't allow them to do it that way. But what's really curious is that 68% of you identified another student as a mentor or role model, which says a lot about the, and we didn't ask, do you have friends? It's kind of a sad question. We asked, do you have somebody who's a mentor or role model, somebody that you could look up to and talk to in a really significant, genuine, and authentic way about you and your future? And in fact, I think it's really valuable that in addition to having professors, identified, which I'm sure I know is good for the faculty. But it's also good for you as students to identify that you will identify other students. 96% of all students here, and this again, I'll go back to the comment about the drop in there's not enough respectful conversation, and yet 96% of all students describe their relationships with other students as good or excellent. I mean, almost 100% describe their relationships with other students as good or excellent. Which is really pretty remarkable. 91% describe their relationships with faculty as good or excellent. And I'm really happy to say that at St. Ben's, 71% of students describe their relationships with administrators and staff as good or excellent. That this is all not just sort of a we're the dark side kind of thing. We're the people who just say no. And having begun my professional career in the Minnesota State Department of Finance, where we did say no all the time to budget requests, it's not a very fun thing to get into. I'm going to wrap up, but I think I'm going to wrap with 2 things about, the places you'll go and the way seniors describe what you're going to do. And then I'll tell you what's really going to happen. The way it'll work out, sorry, not precisely. It's close, but about 56% of you say that immediately after graduation you'll be employed. That's going to be about 75%. That's the way, that's every year. I mean, because as the seniors who are here, when you march off, when you pick up your cap and gown, you're going to have to fill out another survey. And it's called a first destination survey, St. John's. And so for all of you who are situated by then, in other words, you've got a plan already made, you don't get that survey again. But if you're not situated, we're going to call back. Not my office, it's actually XP. And if you're not situated when they call back, they're going to call back. And they're going to keep calling you back for 12 months to find out if after 12 months, and almost everybody is situated by 12 months, and most actually by 6. But so 56% say you're going to work, 24% say you're going to go to graduate school, and that's really where the swing is. It'll probably, in most years, our graduate enrollment immediately after college ends up being about 18%. Now, that's immediately after college. By your 3rd year, a third of our graduates are either in graduate school or have finished a graduate degree. So it works out. But I think by the time, it's one thing to ask this question in October. If I asked it in March or April, as you're getting closer to the deadline, as the clock is ticking to independence, you'd answer it differently. 75% of students say, and this has been consistent from first-year students and senior students for years and years, expect to eventually earn a graduate or professional degree. That's probably, there's no evidence that suggests quite yet that it's that high, and there are reasons for that. You get into your lives, you get into a career, it gets harder to stop out of a career to do that. In my own case, I don't have a PhD, I have a master's degree, and when I was 40 or so, and I was actually older than that, I was probably 42, and we already had 4 children, and I said to my wife, I really need to get a PhD, and my wife, the St. Ben's graduate, who looked at me and did not offer this as advice, she said, before you get a PhD, don't forget you're a DAD. That was actually a very clever way to respond to that statement. And she was right. That was just, at that point in my life, that was not going to happen. Working, parent, and school was not going to happen. And that's in fact because life intervenes. And so, but yet I think this idea that 75% project a graduate degree is important. It'll end up at least at 40 or 45. And a lot of it is simply responding to the cues of the labor market. And most students who get graduate degrees ultimately get master's degrees or professional degrees. But it is responding to cues in the labor market. We end the survey, and this is the first year we've asked this on this survey, and I included it on the senior survey because we included it on the alum survey this year, and it's the happy questions, maybe. How optimistic are you about your future? I really like that question a lot. And it ranged from very optimistic to, well, essentially pessimistic, or neither optimistic nor pessimistic. And 94% of St. Ben's seniors describe themselves as either very optimistic or somewhat optimistic about the future. Half said very optimistic. I actually think that's important, and in some ways quite lovely as well. That I think this sense of optimism is like fuel for your life. And sort of my parting comment here is you, especially for the seniors who prepare to go away, you will graduate here at age 22 or 23. This is very hard to imagine. but you will likely work the next 45 years. So there is no way for you to imagine that scale of time. Having just turned 55, I'm still trying to grasp that scale. And where did that time actually, well, go? But this, and having got my first senior discount last week, which is a shocking and terrible experience, because I didn't expect it. It's a terrible question. Are you in the 55 plus category? At a grocery store. Category? I got $2 off for being 55? Felt wrong. But in any case, the idea of optimism, and it's one of the great things about working at a college. These places, colleges everywhere, see with the future and optimism and energy. That's what college this is the only time in your life that you will live in a commune like this, a similar age commune. Well, you may again, a long time from now, and it will be different. But this is the one time in your life that you will have this experience. And too many people think of college as a landing place. It's not at all. This is a launching place. And so the idea that most students leave here with a sense of optimism about their future is really important. So, think critically, advocate passionately, lead courageously. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much, John.
It's my first time.
Are there any questions for our guest today, Vice President?
Sorry, that took a little longer than I thought.
Thank you very much for coming in and sharing with us. It's nice to hear. I feel like we got the exclusive look at the.
Well, you did.
So it makes us feel special. I have a question about something that I've noticed. Are we particularly any higher in other schools than we start freshman year, we finish senior year, all in 4 years? Like I've noticed that we here, that's just what we do here in other schools. My friends from high school, over break, I chatted with them, and that's not as typical at other colleges. Is there a specific reason?
Yeah, well, there are 2,240 public and private four-year colleges in the United States. The standard for reporting graduation now, oddly enough, these are four-year colleges. The standard of federal reporting is now 6-year graduation, which I find amusing, that four-year colleges, the standard reporting is now 6. Between 70 and 75% of our students in any given entering class, graduate from here in 4 years. Then we'll add several percentage points, really in the 5th year, and actually there are a handful in 6 or beyond, but very, very few. If you're not done in 4 here, you're done typically by midway through your 5th year. And for 5th year, that midway can be, especially for teachers, L.Ed., they're doing a practicum then. In some cases, it's nursing graduates too. So at St. John's, many of them are athletes. They have 1 semester of eligibility. They have 1 year of eligibility left. They stay an extra semester. Nationally, less than half of all students in an entry cohort will finish at that school in 4 years. So we're quite a bit different. And of those who do graduate from here, so the rate I just told you, that 70 to 75, that's a survivor rate. That is, the people who didn't graduate just left. But of those who graduate, of those who do graduate, it's like something between 92 and 95% finish in 4 years or less. And that's very unusual, as it turns out, in higher education. And the reason it happens here, and at institutions like us, this would be common among the MIC schools. Well, some of the MIC schools. This is what Gustavus, St. Olaf, Concordia Moorhead, Carleton, Mac, especially would look like. St. Thomas kind of too, Hamlin kind of too, a little, and then less so at some of the others. But the reason for that, first of all, it suggests that we are enrolling students who came here for whom this is the right fit. So first of all, you stayed. You didn't leave. That alone makes us different. The second is we enrolled students for whom this is a right fit socially and academically. That is, you succeeded in the time that you were here, and that's why you could graduate. The third is that we have the systems in place designed to get you out of here. This is not a landing place. It's a launching place. And so the way we try to structure academic advising, faculty advising, the way even things like financial aid and the way majors are structured, the way the common curriculum is structured, is designed, by and large, to get you out in 4 years. The way we offer courses. So we're not the kind of place that says, oh my God, in my sophomore year, I missed a course that's only offered every other year. And it's a required course, and now I'm out of sequence, and now I can't take that until I'm a senior, which is actually quite common, especially at very large institutions. And so this idea, so that fuels it. The other thing that you get at a smaller place, now these aren't tiny places, but they're small. So just compare us to the University of Minnesota, where you are with 54,000 of your closest personal friends. There's a lot of students at the University of Minnesota. By the way, it's a wonderful school. And if you are the kind of person who's an explorer and a discoverer, who does not need to know that anybody has your back and can navigate nooks and crannies in big organizations, it's a wonderful place. If that isn't you, it's not such a good place. And I think what happens here is that you are all way too young for the television show Cheers. However, you may be familiar with it. But this is sort of like Norm, everybody knows your name kind of thing. And it is that way at St. Ben's and St. John's, and that's part of why the community experience. And it's part of the reason why when you're a senior and it's April, and I ask, are you ready to go? And I get, I'm sad. I don't want to. I prefer to stay. And it's not so much because I'm scared to leave. It's because I have become very fond of and connected to this place and the people at this place in the particular way we do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our guests today?
Let me offer this. If you're writing a paper for a class, you need this kind of data. My number is 5287. That's my direct number. You can call me and we will connect you to this data and I will help you do this for your coursework. We do get students who do that. I'll direct you to where you can find it. I actually really like doing that. And if you'd like, I told you, honest to God, for as long as I talked, you wouldn't think. But I told you a fraction of what was in it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to Roman numeral 2, letter B, be the match. Not here, so we will strike that and move on. To letter C, open forum. Are there any guests wishing to address the Senate today? Seeing.
Hello, I'm Bridget. I'm running as club auditor in this coming election. I'm a freshman, first year. Yep, my major is environmental studies and my minor is anthropology and Spanish. I'm really excited. I know some of you people here, but Kathy was my, I had a fly-in, so I know her and she got me introduced to this. And so that's why I'm just really excited.
Awesome. So, yeah, cool. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited to have you. Moving on to Roman numeral 3, board reports. Letter A, president's report. Without objection, the chair will now pass.
I accept.
All right. Hello, ladies. I hope you all had a very nice break. It's so nice to see you all again. Really excited to have you around the table. So I've got kind of a lot to get through, so just kind of bear with me. First of all, people who are leaving us at the end of this semester will need to write transition notes, and I know we've been keeping updated a bit with that, but those will be due on Friday, December 8th. So that's a week from this Friday, and you will send those to Vice President Weekly. Cool, so just make sure to do those. We will also, I'm going to have everyone write an end of semester report. So that is where you can basically make a report that says what you've been working on, what progress you've made, what your accomplishments have been. You can also think about what you tried and didn't work, what you've been working on, and maybe it's time to just let that go, and a bit of a reflection on the semester, as well as any initial thoughts for next semester and the things that you want to start working on. And so I'll send out an email with all of that information so that you don't just have to remember that offhand. But those will be due on study day, which is Wednesday, December 13th, and you will send those to me. So there's that. We also have speeches tomorrow at 6:30 in Fireside. That is mandatory. We will also have elections tabling on Friday. If you are available, please sign up. There has been a Google Doc link sent out, so please use that. It's a great way for the Senate to get some visibility. We will also have, just block out December 10th right now for Senate bonding. And if you have any questions, direct those to Chairwoman Stokes. Sorry? The evening. Block out the evening of December 10th. We'll also have pizza with the president, as a reminder, on December 11th at the Renner House, and also with her cabinet as well, so wear Senate attire to that event. Are we going to have people who are leaving give us their blouses after that? Okay, yeah. So people who are heading out after this semester, we will need you to return your blouses and padfolios. So if you bring something to just change into real quick afterwards, we'll take those blouses at that time. Also, stay after the meeting, super quick. We have two things going on. We need a quick photo for the Fired Up Friday initiative campaign. They want a picture of us all in our red with a little statement about why we wear red. So I'll be writing up a little statement, but we need a photo of us as well. And also Janine is going to have a little something for us afterwards. So stay tuned. And that is all that I have. I return my time.
Are there any questions for President Steenbridge today? Senator Robinson.
For the speeches tomorrow, do you want us to wear Senate attire?
Yes, please.
Are there any other questions for President Steenbridge? Treasurer Tate?
How long do the reports have to be?
I'm not going to set a required length on it. Take the amount of space that you feel necessary to answer those questions.
Senator Pelkey.
Do you also want us to turn in Senate t-shirts?
Nope. We do not have people. Just kidding. In the past, we have. Do that.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, the chair will pass back.
I accept. Moving on to letter B, advisor's report. Advisor Chair.
All right. Well, you have made it through almost the whole semester next week in the last meeting, as has been noted already. And I think this semester, at least from my perspective, has gone very, very quickly. Perhaps it feels that way for all of you. And I think that the writing assignment that you've been given by President Steenbridge to sort of reflect upon what you've done this semester is going to be really helpful. And it's not to make you feel bad about what hasn't gotten done. It can sometimes be a great motivator when you look and see, I really had meant to do these things, what kept me from doing it. When Bob Bell was advisor here, he talked about the beauty of regrets for those people who've heard that version of his observation, that regret can be a really good motivator. What are things that you wanted to get done that you didn't have a chance to? What kept you from doing those things? And to use that not as a way to feel bad or to beat yourself up or to feel guilt, but use it as a way to think about how you want to motivate yourself to accomplish things that you weren't able to accomplish yet this semester. And to that end, one of the things that we have not yet completed, Mike and I, was the response to all of the questions that came in after our alcohol task force presentation. We've been slowly but surely plugging away at it. And it is on both of our lists to get done. We're meeting today to continue going through those things. So know that we haven't forgotten it. It's just other things have kind of risen to the top of our list that needed attention. But we do continue to plug away at getting that done. And then the last thing that I have, we had scheduled lunches with people, Tuesdays and Thursdays with me and Mondays and Wednesdays with Advisor Place. And I know that when you sign up, you don't have any idea what's actually going to be going on 3 weeks from the time that you sign up. And I know that there have been some conflicts that have come up and people who maybe have had to cancel or would like to reschedule, and that would be a great thing to do for people who have had to not attend the meetings that were signed up for. So if that falls into your category, I'd be happy to work with you individually or over email. We can find other times to get together for the lunch or whatever it might end up being, coffee or whatever we want to do. But it would be really nice to be able to have that time. I know Janine would like that too. Just to have that kind of set aside time outside of a meeting to be able to do that. So tomorrow I have lunches scheduled with the two of you. So if for some reason it's not going to work out, this is also an incredibly busy time of year, and I understand that. We can maybe just touch base afterwards and see if we want to do something a little bit different with that. So with that, I return my time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Advisor Terhar? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll move on to Advisor Kleis.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The after meeting event, you're welcome to join us. Just want to make you welcome. All right. So first of all, on end of semester reports, I had a chance to speak to Bob Bell today about that, and he said he insisted at the time that he was the advisor on having people present at that last meeting on your accomplishments, and he said it didn't go well. He said I was really mean because they didn't accomplish things. I said, well, how are you going to change this? How are you going to be accountable for that? So it's something you might consider. If I were presenting this to the group, what would I have to say? How would I be accountable for that? And what is my action plan then? And you don't have to do everything that you planned on doing, but you have to have a plan going forward. So I would encourage you to do that. Second, I just want to comment, there's a lot of things happening in the news today, and it's in my career, I've never seen a time. This is unprecedented. And I know you've heard that, but I'm not sure, having been in the workforce for years and years and years, I'm not sure you can fully appreciate what unprecedented means. We haven't seen this before. We really haven't seen this. It's a good thing, the exposure, and people are being held accountable. My wish for you is that you are realistic and prepared, and that you don't think this won't happen to me. Because of what's happening today, this won't happen to me. That is not the case. You need to be ready. You need to think about that. And you need to think about how you might respond to something like that, because it's more likely than not that sometime you will face something where you or a friend or somebody will be questioned, all right, or will be facing inappropriate actions. Be ready. And finally, two things I take away from John today. Optimism is really important, so I'll go back to my Power of Positive Thinking in that book. Keep that in mind, it will impact your future. And confidence. Carry yourself with confidence. I once had somebody say in consulting to me, even if you really don't know the answer, say it with confidence like you're certain it's true. Now, I have trouble with that, right? I don't want to sound overly confident. If I really, well, I think it's, but confidence is something important. So I applaud him on that. Thank him for that. After the meeting is the incentive for the gratitude and kindnesses. However, no matter where you are in that, I wasn't perfectly clear about how to respond to that. I did get one response, Senator Gregor, and it was lovely. It brought tears to my eyes. Whether or not you were able to fit that into your schedule, I want you to stick around for this right after, and I'll explain more after the meeting. Thank you, Arjun.
Are there any questions for Advisor Kleist? Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to letter C, Executive Board Report, Vice President Weekly.
Hello, everyone. The executive board did not meet this week. We had a couple political science majors off at Polydazzle, and we just had busy stuff with senior stuff, so we caught up through our group text message, and we did meet. That's it. I return the time.
Are there any questions for Vice President Weekly? Seeing none, we'll move on to Roman numeral letter D, Co-Funding Board Report, Chairwoman Stokes.
So co-funding board did not meet again for the 2 weeks in a row. It's been a nice break. Return my time.
Are there any questions for Chairwoman Stokes? Vice President Weekly.
1, I love the new title. 2, I'm curious as to why you guys didn't meet.
We don't have any requests.
Oh.
There were literally no requests. Everyone was busy during the holidays.
Return my time.
Are there any other questions for Chairwoman Stokes? Seeing none. Letter E, budget update, Treasurer Tay.
Our current budget is $18,801.32. One more time, $18,801.32.
Are there any questions for Treasurer Tay? Senator Gregor.
Do you know what percentage we are for total budget?
I would love to tell you, but my laptop died, so I cannot tell you that right now. But I can get back to you tonight.
Maybe send it out in the group text.
I can do that.
Great, thank you. I have more time.
Are there any other questions for Treasurer Tay? Seeing none, we'll move on to letter F, St. John Senate update, Trustee Eichten.
Yes, so I appreciate the invite. Unfortunately, I do have to run after this. I have pickleball playoffs. Gotta defend the title. So, I appreciate that though. We met on Monday. We had no funding requests, so we went over, we did the exec board and the chairman did a presentation based on all the goals we have accomplished this semester. So we put up the goals we set out at the beginning of the semester, goals we have accomplished thus far, which was nice to see sort of a direct thing of what we've done. That will be going up on our Senate page on the website so that the students can see it. Our St. John Senate office is almost renovated, so please stop on by. It is pretty awesome in there, and we'd love for you guys to come see it. And then so far, after 2 weeks ago, when we last met, we have spent approximately 63% of our budget. So we're in pretty good shape for where we normally are at this point in the semester. So, Erica, with that.
Are there any questions for Trustee Acton? Seeing none. Oh, PR Rep Webster.
I just want to say thanks for coming.
Any other questions for Trustee Treasurer Tate?
Do you have the actual number or budget?
Yeah. 17,000 and change. Oh, 17,743. Thank you.
I just want to say.
Are there any other questions for Trustee Acton? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Moving on to letter G, open forum. Are there any senators wishing to address the Senate today? Vice President Weekly.
Hello, ladies, again. I have an update for you about what I've been working on and what's going on in the life of your VP. I'm currently working on the agenda for the spring retreat, kind of taking the notes that you guys gave me from the fall retreat and incorporating all of that good stuff into our spring retreat. You guys have the dates and times and everything, so should be all set with that. The other thing that I am formulating on is we got an email from one of the culinary services workers that said that the newspapers were flying around in the glass box, whatever, that's what I call it, at the bus stop, because they open the window, or the doors open and the papers fly around. So I'm trying to figure out how to, it could be as easy as putting a rock on top of the paper, but I feel like someone would take whatever you put on top of the paper because you never know. But I'm working on that. I'm also, President Steenberg and I started looking at a new project management platform today. So I'm kind of looking at that, trying to figure out if that's something that we want to maybe implement next semester. I'm also working with PR Rep Webster on promotion for executive assistant. Unfortunately, our executive assistant has to leave us to go study and travel the world. Bummer. So we need to hire a new exec assistant. So if you guys have anybody that possibly wants to do an exec assistant position, isn't quite ready for an elected position, but still wants to be involved in the Senate, make sure to let them know that we are looking. We'll have an email going out this Saturday, and then another email going out on Monday, and the deadline will be next Wednesday to apply by. So we will have a new executive assistant by the time we leave for break, and we will bring her to the retreat so you can all meet her and all that good stuff. So that is all I've been working on. I'm over to my time.
Senator Thomas.
Okay, sorry. So we had FOC Saturday before we left for break. It was really nice. I was really proud of everyone who participated. And of course, you guys know that I did hand out the pamphlets and the initiative that me and my counterpart took. And it turned out well. There was a really big turnout from SJU Senate. I appreciate everyone who helped. But I did notice that there was not a big turnout from CSB Senate, and I was actually very disappointed. I appreciate people who did tell me, or President Steenberg, about not being able to come and ask why. But I just think that you guys should think about that and pay attention to the fact that no, we aren't a joint Senate, and what our goals are and what we're actually doing, and also how it looks as well. That SJU Senate was so involved, and they were. I think it may have been at the most one person missing if I could count them out. They were very helpful, as well as people who did come. I know Club Auditor Gregor was there. Then there were participants who actually participated in the actual events that were there, which is even greater. Try to focus on the fact that one of our goals is inclusivity, is building a bigger relationship and better relationship with students. And if we don't take opportunities like that and ignore them, we're not gonna reach those goals, so, yeah. So that's just something to think about, and with that,
Senator Robinson.
So if you guys remember from my work report, I had a meeting with Jerry Ice. Something that we noticed is that for graduation, we don't really get honored for as much leadership we do or any of like the clubs or sports that we are. So I had a meeting with him about getting, I don't know, cords or stoles just for being involved in any kind of government clubs, any honoraries. So MDH has actually given us the red light to go forward with that. So if any of you, green. I said red. I'm looking at shirts. Green light. So if any of you guys are in any well, this is a government group, but like any honoraries or any community service groups on campus, please get in contact with me. We are going to build a focus group so we can move forward with that. And also whether St. John's says yes or no, we can still move forward if MDH says yes. Ayrton.
Trustee Angrad.
That is so awesome. That's not what I meant to say.
Here.
That is such a good initiative. I love that. My projects that I've been working on so far is the Peyton Head Initiative. We had a meeting with Brandon Woodard. Trustee Langton and I are kind of heading it. We're just seeing different revenues. We're trying to get as many clubs involved as possible. It's still in the very planning stages right now. Nothing's set. I just want to clarify that. My other big project is the Constitution Review, which is really fun. I'm going to present on the changes. Christmas cards are ordered already. They'll be here on Monday, and I'm shipping them out by Friday, so everyone will have time. St. John's trustees, St. Ben's trustees, cabinet. There's a whole list of people I'm going to be sending it out to, along with your family members. And I've also been planning the alumni brunch. I have 2 dates set to save, March 18th and March 25th. I'm going to choose one. By the end of the semester, it will be chosen. I just need very last minute changes. So with that, I return my time.
Are there any other senators wishing to address the Senate? Seeing none, Senator Weber.
Hi. I just want to kind of respond to Senator Thomas's point. I just wanted you to know that, so maybe we didn't see you, but some of us, like Clarissa was there, I was there, Sid was there, and by the time we got there, it was kind of hard to like, we didn't really know. I mean, moving forward, I think we want to have a little bit more structure with the pamphlet thing. Because I talked to Sid and I was like, what are we doing? What should we do? And the pamphlets are all gone. So I hope you know that, that maybe we didn't see us and stuff, but moving forward, maybe we should be a little clear about like what we're going to do. I yield my time.
Oh yeah, I was aware that even if I didn't see you, or I might have seen you from a distance, and I was aware of who was there. Like I knew Sid was there. I know I didn't run into all of you guys, but I know Senator Pelkey was there. Like I saw, I knew,
yeah.
And still, even so,
yeah, no, I understand.
There still wasn't a big turnout. And as far as the structure, that was our first time with doing something like that, and there is always something to learn from it. And people kind of, what we learned was people came on time, and at a certain point, it wasn't as much handing out as it was being on the actual floor, getting them to interact. So that part that I wanted, and I guess I was running around with different things that ran out of pamphlets at one point, so I didn't get to maybe do one-on-one with everybody, but I will work on the structure if that helps everyone. But yeah, thank you. For example,
Chairwoman Stokes.
If you do come to bonding on that day, you get free Chipotle and words of affirmation, and you get to keep them and look at them sometimes when you feel down. So there's more incentives for coming.
Are there any other senators wishing to address the Senate? Seeing none, we will move on to letter H, constitutional review. And the way that we're kind of going to go about this, obviously the Constitution is a really long document, so Noman is going to take us through it. She'll point out some of the significant changes, write down questions that you might have, and we can come back to those. When we get to your specific position, if you feel like there's something really important that should be shared, that's a large change, feel free to just stick out your hand and I'll call on you. You can share that with the Senate.
So this is our lovely Constitution. And we're just gonna go over the changes. Yes, sorry. Yeah, okay, I'll scoot in as well. So the additions are made in red, as you will see. These are just some comments. These are just comments. For president, it says P is added, maintain adequate supplies in the St. Ben's office, which is what President Steenberg has been doing. And another was added, it's received 10 to 12 hour work award through the student employment position through the student development office. And then for the vice president position, another addition was chair the judicial board if the trustee is unable to. And another addition was receive 5 to 6 hour work award through the student employment position through the student development office. And you just crossed out the trustee shall.
Senator Gray.
Maybe this is just like my personal views. I don't think you can receive a stipend and a work award at the same time. I don't know if it's different from 5 to 6.
We're not receiving stipends.
She's not.
That's
She's
just
not.
sorry,
Yeah,
take
no,
that out.
delete that, yeah.
It's on. Yeah, and yeah. So, we'll take that out. Perfect. That was just starting my question. Treasurer Kagan.
Why is the vice president's hours lower than the president's?
That's just something that was decided. Sorry. Do you want to say?
And that's just how it was hashed out with the Senate before when we decided that vice president and president were doing work awards versus.
So is that something that's still open for discussion or?
Is what?
Not at the time,
I mean, I think that if Vice President Weekly thinks that that's an adequate work award for the work that she's doing, and actually Vice President Lovo didn't even think that she needed a work award, I don't think that we would raise that at this point. Sandra?
So it's it's just for the executive work, so we can do something like that instead of getting a stipend. Like,
It's just for the president and vice president.
Yeah. Sure, my time.
Noma, do you want to take out the receipt at 2:50?
Yeah, I'm trying really hard, but.
I'm gonna write it down and we'll do it later.
Yeah.
I put the arrow.
Use your arrow.
Like, there you go.
Oh, yeah, you guys.
Yes.
Hold on. Go to format.
It's format.
Format, and then strike through.
Just do strike.
So got the trustee shall serve as a member of the Board of Trustees Student Development Committee as needed. It's something that Vice President Weekly usually does. And then meet with Vice President in preparation for the Board of Trustees Student Development Committee meeting. If Vice President is unable to do that, I usually take over that committee for her. Treasurer, Treasurer Tate added report the current budget during St. Ben's Senate meetings, which she does. And then Q, if invited, serve as the member of the Finance Committee for the Board of Trustees. And then the M is listed as confusion surrounding this point.
Yeah, so that one I was confused about that because I don't do that. Like I got the
No, that could just be taken out, I think.
That's what I was saying.
That would only affect AKS, and AKS has to come to Senate.
Perfect. I like taking out. Thank you guys. I mean, ladies.
And we really just need to hit the big points, I think, also.
And then public relations representative. G, preserve the brand of the St. Ben's Senate during distributing information on all communication platforms. H was added, publicize St. Ben's Senate weekly agendas and announcement to the student body over email and social media. L was taken out, family weekend and little subs weekend, because that's just not something that's being done. R, be responsible is just added. For S, plan monthly same Senate visibility events if no other Senate organized events take place that month. For club allocations chair, it's E was added. Chair, maintain the co-funding board email account, create co-funding board meeting agendas, report current co-funding budget on each agenda, and communication at each co-funding meeting, taken out just grammatical errors. For club auditor, for L, it was added at their discretion, and then M was also added, submit all agenda requests to co-funding board email account and chairwoman by Sunday at 5 p.m. for Monday's meeting. Community representative, B, develop a working relationship with the director of Alumni Association. And then H was also added, meeting once a month. So those were the two changes that was added. Academic affairs representative, H when necessary. Sustainability representative, promote and educate the community, 4 pillars, economic, social, political, and environmental. And then for I, organize tabling events to educate students about proper recycling and compost methods was added.
Can I ask a question under that one?
Yeah.
M, about managing the Facebook rideshare page, I don't think there is. I mean,
There is.
But I think we need to, because there's the Zimride thing, and there's two rideshare pages that are out there when we did that last year. So, I mean, it can stay in, I guess I'd like to connect to figure out, I don't think students know.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay, we'll visit this. Women's empowerment representative, H was added, renew and maintain the hygiene product program. No changes to student activities representative. There was one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Community barbecue.
Oh.
Did we take that?
It's all saved into this computer and then there's not. So all their work is just.
Cultural representative, nothing was added. No.
That's great.
Okay. Upper class representative, 3 things were added, serve as a member of the Housing Appeals Committee, serve in the Culinary Task Force, act as a liaison between the St. Ben's Senate and residential life, underclass representative, nothing was added, first year representative.
Yes, Senator Roberts.
Do we need both under and upperclassmen representatives to be the liaison for Westside? Or does that matter?
I think that they've both been doing it right now this semester.
I think that they kind of focus, like, for the underclassmen rep does the underclassmen housing and the upperclassmen rep does the upper class housing, so that, like, there's not one senator is involved with all, because I mean, like, obviously Senator Spalding knows more about upperclassmen housing, so it's kind of like putting more effort into it.
Yeah, so for example, when I was underclass rep, I was invited to this meeting when they were like brainstorming what they were gonna do to the first year things or the first year hall. So like I was invited to that, but the upper class rep wasn't necessarily. If that makes sense.
I'll knock that one.
I think that we're both involved and it's kind of whoever, so like I've been talking a lot with residential life. Sorry, I've been talking a lot with residential life. Just if one of us can't make a meeting, then the other one does, and then we're keeping in constant communication, so we're both just handling it.
First year representative is B, have one allocation voting starting second semester, can vote on issues that directly affect allocations. Well, we might have to reword that. And then J, hold open forum one per semester for first years with underclassmen representative to address any first year concerns.
When you say can vote on issues that don't directly affect allocation, do you mean like endorsing things the Senate is putting out and stuff?
And we are gonna reword this second part, but it's basically saying that first year representative can vote on issues, but like kind of endorsements that they're able to do, which the first year representative has been doing. Yep. Executive assistant, E was taken out because President Stevers does it. And then no changes to public relations assistant. And with co-funding board bylaws, they had changes. If you want me to send out the changes, I can, but I don't feel like we need to go over their changes.
Yeah, their changes have been endorsed by the co-funding board.
Yep, it's already implemented and done. For the record, joint club sports funding shall be limited to 15. Okay, sorry, that's also co-funding board.
It's going for a while.
It's for a long time. Joint club board had no changes.
We already endorsed all of our.
Yep.
Sorry.
Just going back up to elections, I had a question that came up regarding special elections specifically. I don't know if that's like a different section about positions that are open or first years. Are we allowing first years to run for like in future terms, first years to run for those positions? So how Carissa already has this one, can they run for like Zelda's and the other ones?
Not Carissa specifically, but
No,
other
like
first years.
since
Yeah,
first year
first years
school.
can run in special elections.
Roman did that.
Yeah, I did it and I lost, but I still came back. Meetings. Stipends, in case of resignation, the senator shall be allocated a stipend based on the portion of the semester served. I think that's explanatory. If she serves 75% of the semester, then she receives 75% of the stipend. Removal from office, vacancies. Yes.
So regarding the stipend and the portion stuff,
Yep.
how do we decide that?
I think that can be determined by the executive boards.
Resignation, and that's also another thing. It's the same one.
Do you want to go up a little bit?
Yeah. So this is just clarifying who will lead the judicial board in case there's a.
It's if someone resigns. Who
Yeah, if someone
takes those
resigns.
positions.
Yep. Those are any questions?
Is that all? Yeah, we're doing funding guidelines. Yeah, do you want to flip over to those, Nova?
Yep. St. Ben's funding guidelines. The question that I had, is this better for everyone? Can you see? Okay. The 1/6 St. Ben's will not fund any initiative already funded by the co-funding board. I personally feel like it should be taken out of our funding guidelines because, I don't know, like if you think about it, we're always trying to promote collaboration. If there's a really cool, awesome event that clubs want to collaborate on, and if they're like Senate, like please come. We also need funding from Senate, and they come. They've already gotten funding from co-funding board, but they come to us. We can't fund it because it says in our funding guidelines that we will not. So yes.
I said to nix the last two because we put clauses in our CSB guidelines, so those things can happen.
Okay.
So like I don't think it's up to us to worry about like, oh, if co-funding board's doing this, we can't do it. Like we think that co-funding board should decide that.
Yeah, so it's shifting responsibility on those decisions from Senate to CFP.
Yeah. So then that last one should get taken out too, as well. So just get rid of the whole St. Ben's Senate will not.
This whole part?
Yeah, that's what I sent to you earlier. Getting rid of both of them.
Okay.
Could we maybe review the co-funding board ones, so like everyone's on the same page of what that wording will look like if we're taking it out of our funding guidelines?
You just want to go to where this would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, just like maybe cross.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
6 pages worth.
That works.
I'm gonna be strong.
Our allocations take 8 minutes and our, like, our
Those were
meetings take like an hour.
Yeah. That's what I didn't understand what I was saying for like 30 minutes. Yeah, the church was like, dude, shut up.
And we argued about it.
Okay.
Well, we have a,
Chairwoman's notes.
Yeah, where, I think, was this just it?
I think that was
I think it was down.
Wait, go back down to this.
a little bit. Yeah. I think that was just it.
Co-funding board may not.
No, May. We added Conda Club initiative that is co-sponsored by the St. Ben Senate and the St. John Senate because basically we already did that with my bystander program and we all didn't even think about that. We gave money to something and then we even sponsored it with them. And then the reason I didn't ask those other clubs for money is because we had this clause. Like we could have gotten more money for that program than I did. But, and then now this, the mysterious that we might have Peyton Head come, things like that, we can have people like that come.
So, I'm sorry, is that to strike that?
No, I'm just talking about it.
Adding it?
Yes, we added it, so then we can co-sponsor things with clubs.
Okay, so then.
Yeah, we may, sorry, that's under the May section.
So then,
Yes, the whole thing. The whole thing.
Okay.
Would it be bad to put it on ours still so people can know?
I think that's the idea though, is that the co-funding board can maybe go about it in a more nuanced way.
Because then we decide with St. John's as well, it's not just like our own St. John's guys. Co-funding board, if we think it aligns with our separate missions.
For the co-funding guidelines, I personally didn't see anything else besides that. Does anyone have any ideas? Like, it has to be a concrete idea. Like, I don't feel comfortable with this. Anything?
Senator Robinson?
I just feel like we should discuss the whole donation thing, because I know that took us up some time when that issue came up before.
Do you mean clarifying what exactly is meant by donation?
Like possibly clarifying certain things so that we don't like are interpreting all differently.
Here.
Yeah.
Anything like specific?
I know one of the big things was like going if it directly goes to charity, if it goes to the event for charity. So like defining if the donation is going straight to the charity or for the event that's fundraising for charity, like clarifying what that money should be used for.
Yeah, right. Because I think that with St. Baldrick's, the issue is that we weren't lowering the cost for any students. Like our money wasn't going to students, it was just so that they could donate more. So we were indirectly making a donation to St. Baldrick's. Sure, but
I think one thing that we always want to like escape, and this just made what you said made me think of this, that we always want to try and not have to take things and like interpret them in our own way. But I think situations are really, or like people that come to us for funding are really situational. So we need to be able to open for interpretation, but I think that we can kind of make it, like after the St. Baldrick's thing happened, we were all kind of like, well, what does donation mean? So I think it's something that we can look for in the future, knowing that like we can pick it apart logistically and say, well, where is this money exactly going? So I don't know what we would add to that wouldn't necessarily take away from other potential opportunities. I think once something's in our guidelines, we like to go so strictly on that. So I don't know what we could add to.
Jody?
I yield my time to.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of the things I think that you could help clarify is to just say donations to charity, because legally you can't make donations to charity. And then I think if there's other, or maybe it's like donations to charitable organizations.
Okay.
Because that, you would put the institutions in jeopardy if you did that because of our status as a not-for-profit. And that way, I think it gives you the ability to kind of analyze, is it like the St. Baldrick's thing that didn't benefit students in any way and really just freed up money? Versus other things where you really are making it possible for more students to participate in things that doesn't affect the actual donation that might be made to the organization. So I think that might draw a line that needs to be drawn, but still give you flexibility to consider perhaps other things.
Yeah.
Anything else on the funding guidelines and like?
I will go start from the top. So I'll give a few seconds to read, but you guys should know.
Really, people should have already submitted changes on this, so I think that if there's nothing coming to mind, and there's nothing in here, we should move on.
Okay. Let's move on. I return my time.
Awesome. Are there any questions for Trustee Angarad on constitutional review? Vice President Lee.
Thank you for working so hard.
But it wasn't me, you guys. It was Senator Greiger and Senator Flores.
Thank you,
Any other questions for Trustee Angarad? Senator Eddy.
So it's not a question for Senator Agras, it's just a concern that I really wanted to bring up. And it's actually, I'm a little upset concerning the first year elections, because I was not aware that freshmen couldn't run in the special elections, and nor was it advertised so at all. And so I was especially sad to learn this because many of the girls who ran last time did not know they could run again. And that honestly made me a little upset. I know like it's too late to like really change anything about it because like advertisement's done, everything's been approved. But it makes me sad that this was even brought up to everybody, because I'm not the only person who didn't know that freshmen could run in special elections. A lot of senators didn't know that freshmen could run in special elections. And a lot of the girls that I was talking to came to me very hurt. They found out that other people, like other freshman girls, were allowed to run after they've been through so much concerning like the whole debacle of the freshman elections. So I was really just disappointed and I was really upset.
Okay, I can respond to that first of all and say that if you maybe didn't know the answer, like if people had questions about that, they could definitely approach a member of the Senate. Most of us are aware that freshmen can run in special elections, and also the women who came in expressing concerns about first year elections, I encourage them to run in special elections. And the advertisement goes out to the entire student body about that. We can clarify it in our guidelines saying specifically that for special elections, any student of the St. Ben student body can run. It does say that, yeah. It's open to all students. So I'm not sure why there was the perception that there was a restriction on that, but yeah.
Yeah, well that's the thing. Like every like when you said like the whole student body, it just seems so implied that since there's a specific position for a freshman, that it would be like the freshmen would not be included. And like the girls that like some of the girls who did actually contact me after they found like a bunch of freshmen were running were like the ones that, and they said that they never heard about like being allowed to run in special elections at all. And like, I don't know if I'm hearing like two sides of a different story, but it just seems like, because I talked to some senators because I was surprised and I was like, hey, you know, what's going on? I didn't know they could run. A lot of them told me they couldn't run. So I just felt like it just felt very shady to me, because it was like these girls just went through so much and then it felt like they were going again like another like whirlwind. I just didn't appreciate as a senator. I felt like we should have just brought this whole thing up in the first place, like just to like, you know, like just like to be like, hey you guys, like, you know, freshmen are running, like, hey, you know, just wish you guys were all on the same page. So it just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like out of loop, and I know some other people felt out of loop. I don't want to name names because it's their privacy.
Right.
But like,
So I'd say that in the future, maybe bring that up with myself or Vice President Weekly or another member who can give you solid facts on that, and but we can't, I'm just gonna say that we can't address an issue if we don't know that there's an issue.
And yeah, I also didn't know there was an issue because I didn't think freshmen were allowed to run. And so that's why I was really shocked about it.
Okay, well, we can also have this, we can continue this discussion afterwards.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it up because I don't know, I just felt like, I just didn't like how like a lot of the girls came to me and they were very upset. They like seemed like they were about to cry. And it just really hurt me to see that as a senator that like so many freshmen were like so sad about it, like hurting. And so that's why I felt like the need to bring it up. Because I want to be like their voice, which is why I'm on Senate. I just didn't like how they're like nearly in tears. Joe?
Yeah, so I agree that we should, that's just another clarification issue. I don't know if next time, maybe we could take more time. It seems as though with elections and freshmen, they don't exactly get everything. You know, you kind of make a lot of assumptions, but I guess we do have to understand more that they're, you know, not as mature, you know, than us running for positions that we're sophomores, juniors, seniors now. So maybe we should make it an initiative to like take more time on them. And now that we're seeing that our assumptions aren't right, that, you know, we all think that they'll just get stuff like we get stuff, you know, but it seems as though that's not it. So, I don't know, maybe we could try to do something like that. I don't know, you have more time to explain it.
I think that going along with that, I think that if these, I definitely hear and I definitely have like the empathetic ear to that situation, but there's only so much that we can do. We held the info session, MC sat, and everybody sat in the room and held the info session. If people were interested in Senate, they got the email, whether they chose to delete it and not read it, or whether, because I know that happens all the time, people don't even open them, they just swipe them and delete them on their phone, or that it's in our guidelines. And I think that if you were as interested and as passionate as claimed to be, that the easiest, you go to the website, it's very easy, you read our constitution, you read our guidelines. So I think that there's also a sense of accountability that those girls need to take in order to get to know the system, in order to go through the process. So I see both sides, but I agree that we should definitely maybe be more explicit in the way that we read it in the guidelines so that they know that they can be in special elections. But I guess I return on time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of going off that, I thought we did make it, there's still like work to be done obviously, but I think we did make improvements this election with the nomination process that Senator Ware did. We had over 20 Bennies be nominated, and one Benny in particular was nominated over 5 times. So just seeing that, and a lot of the Bennies who did end up running were Bennies that were nominated, and I thought that was a really cool opportunity to do that this year, and that was clear. That was sent to Bennies and Johnnies that they could nominate anyone. We also tabled, and I told everyone to run and nominate whoever, and then emails were sent out to everybody. So yes, we could explicitly say freshman, our first year, sophomore, junior, senior, but there were a lot of opportunities for people to come forward and ask questions as well.
Yeah, that's great, and you know, with everything, everybody works hard. I'm not saying that we didn't do enough, or you know, but we can't take as we believe we did this much. When other issues arise, we have to continue, whether it's slight ways or just really getting the RAs more involved and telling them, like, let the people on your floor know, because they have a lot of more of a personal connection to them, even if it's slight, just to, or if it's nothing at all that we can think of, but at least take that time to consider and think about it, ways we could improve it. Because, I mean, there's always room for improvement. I know you guys do very well at what you do, but always keep in mind that there might be something that we're all missing, or, you know, and not only that you two think about it, because I know you all handle things like that a lot, but everyone, you know, to help out in that aspect of thinking how to do all of our jobs better to help out the CSB students here. And with that,
okay. Are we on? Still con review. Are there any other questions about con review? Nothing on con review. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to Roman numeral 4, new business, letter A, motion to approve the changes to the St. Ben Senate Constitution. There's been a motion by trustee Angarag and a second by PR Rep Webster. All those in favor of approving the Constitution, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 14-0-0. Moving on to Roman numeral 5, announcements, letter A. The next meeting of the St. Ben Senate will be on Tuesday, December 5th at 5 p.m. It's Tuesday, everyone do please take note. Letter B, Senator Weber will attend the next St. John Senate meeting on Monday, December 4th at 9:20 p.m. Moving on to Roman numeral 6, adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Second. There's been a motion by Senator Robinson and a second by Chairwoman Stokes. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.